Hey, it's SaskiaSketches, and today I'm going to be diving into a little bit more detail about how I use my watercolours. So about 8 months ago I got a commission from my lovely friend at BloodyBlade123 on Instagram, and I really enjoyed drawing her character Blade, and I made a video about that where I showed you guys how I use my watercolours. And now I was commissioned again to draw another character of hers, and that character is Aqua, and I believe she's Blade's girlfriend or wife, and I wanted to make a piece that was complementary to the one that I'd made previously. And so I thought, hey, how about I make a video about that one too, where I show you guys my watercolour process and maybe see if anything has changed, and yeah, maybe make just, you know, a bit of a better video, because I believe I can do a little bit better. Before we begin though, if you would like to commission me, you can do so over on FIVERR. I'll have a link in the description as well. And you can commission me over on Instagram as well if you'd like a bit of a bigger piece. Over on my FIVERR, I actually just do sketches, and I also do fake anime screen caps. But if you would like me to mail your piece and ship it out to you, I can do that as well, but that will cost a little bit extra. So I prefer to have that over on my Instagram, and only with larger pieces I spend a little bit more time on. But yeah, if you'd like me to, I could probably mail you out a sketch that is small as well, but I just feel like it'll cost a little bit too much, so you'd pay maybe $5 for the commission itself and then $5 for the shipping. So I don't know how appealing that is to people, but if you'd like that, I can definitely do that. But yeah, obviously I cannot be shipping things out at the moment because of the virus that's going on, but I promise I will ship it out as soon as I can. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So obviously you're going to have a sketch beforehand if you're going to make a piece like this. So sometimes I watercolour without a sketch and without any line art, and that's totally fine if you're using like maybe watercolours for a background where you're going to use the wet or wet technique and that kind of stuff. But for this one I decided to go with a sketch and with line art. So it is super important, and I cannot stress this enough, that you use the right kind of paper, because if you use paper that isn't good for watercolors, you're going to cry, because it's going to buckle up, it's going to tear, it's going to rip, it's not going to be pretty. So please use good quality watercolor paper, preferably 100% cotton. So that is what I like to use anyway. Yes, and when you're lining your piece, make sure that you have a waterproof fine liner. These are all these things that can and will mess up your piece if you use the wrong kind of materials here. So normally I am absolutely all for using cheap supplies and everything, about the mindset that, hey, you don't need expensive art supplies to make good artwork. That's definitely not true. You don't need those supplies that are super expensive. Like, you don't have to have Copic markers in order to make beautiful artwork. That's absolutely not a requirement. They can be nice and they can help, but they are absolutely not necessary. And I really agree with that on almost everything except watercolors. For watercolors, the quality of the supplies... Thank you, timer, for interrupting me. Yes, I'll go. My apologies for that interruption. As I was saying, you really need good watercolor supplies in order to make good watercolor artwork. It's just because low quality paints are usually made with filler, and those filler materials are going to really show up in your final work. It's always so prominent and so prevalent if you've used watercolor supplies that aren't very professional, and even the way that they are applied is always very yeah, I guess stressful if you're not using the right kind of supplies, because they're working against you, and it's not fun. It's never really fun if you know, you have watercolors and the colors are separating, or the pigment just isn't showing up and that kind of thing, and it's always it's never really fun, and that's why I always highly recommend good watercolor supplies. But like I said, that's just for watercolors. For most supplies, it doesn't really matter too much if you're using a knockoff brand or a cheaper version, even though obviously the more expensive and the more high quality your supplies are, the better your results will be. But I only think that I think with watercolors, it is really prevalent how it is always really prevalent when you're using low quality supplies, and that's why I find it so important to use good supplies when it comes to watercolors, because it's just so sad if you're working so hard on a piece and it's just not looking good, and you blame yourself, but it's actually the watercolors working against you, or the paper working against you. So that's why I feel so strongly about that. Guys, sorry for all the background noise. Oh my gosh, the neighbour's dog is out, and she's an absolute sweetheart, and I love her, but she barks so much. So yeah, it just seems like everything is working against me. First a timer and now this. I'm trying to make a good video, guys. I hope you appreciate it. Anyway, as you have probably seen by now, I use the wet on wet technique for the background, and the first thing I did was just wet the paper with my huge brush and then just drop in some of the blue colour, and I just made that in a kind of a swirly motion to create that circular effect, because I wanted a circular base composition, because the previous piece that I did also had that. And after that I went in with the wet on dry technique, where I just filled in all the flowers and all the flat colours as well, and I used a colour scheme that I previously picked out. So I wanted to have a blue, a yellow and a purple. And I used that yellow and that purple because those were included in the previous piece, and I picked the main colour, the blue, because Aqua is a mostly blue character. I feel like her hair is blue and her outfit is usually kind of bluish, on the blue side. She wears mostly purple, but I really do like how this looks, and I feel like it suits her character. And obviously the skin tone I mixed with the yellow and the purple, instead of just grabbing a skin tone that is out of a completely different colour scheme. So I have one pre-made skin tone. I never ever use it. I always just mix my skin tones, and I do that. Usually I just pick a bit of red and add a little bit of raw sienna, or I water down a brown or anything like that, and I always make sure to water it down like a ton, otherwise it's just too much pigment. But this time I just grabbed my yellow that I was using and I added just a little bit of that purple, not too much, otherwise it would turn grey or muddy, because obviously purple and yellow are complementary colours, and if you use them together they are going to mud up. So they're great for mixing greys, but that's about it. So I just made that, I just did that to tone down the yellow in the skin tone, because I didn't want it to be too yellow, but that's how I mixed that. And for the shading, I mixed the purple with a little bit of the blue to make a bit more toned down version of the purple, and a bit darker version as well. And I used that to shade the whole character. And I always find it a good idea to shade with one colour when you're using your watercolours. When you're making this kind of artwork, that probably won't work very well if you're making something realistic, but I always find that works very well if you're making a character or something with line art, you know, or something in the cartoonish style or something like that, you know. Yeah, so that worked out quite nicely. I also shaded the flowers a bit. I didn't shade any of the petals that are flying off of her, but I really like the way that this looks. Oh wait, I forgot, but I actually did shade some of the petals. Never mind. Though I was quite tempted to use some metallic paint markers or metallic watercolors to make the jewelry stand out, and a bit of white for for highlights and stuff, but I didn't do that because I didn't do that in the other piece. And like I said, this was supposed to be a complementary piece, so she was going to hang them next to each other, and I didn't want one to stand out from the others, so I tried to match the other one as well as I could. The piece of blade is curved in the opposite direction, and I think that's super cool. If you were to hang them next to each other, that would look very nicely, and they'd make like a heart shape. And with that, we're at the end of the video, but do not click away just yet, because I got some fantastic fan art of River. River is one of my elemental animals, and she is a water lioness, and I love this interpretation of her. I think it's so beautiful, and as I normally don't draw the animals as if they're made of water, because they're not according to the law, but I really enjoy the look of it though. This incredible artwork was made by Jill Bernard, or Wrath, over on the Weedy Creators Discord, and oh, I love it so much. Thank you so much for drawing this fan art. It makes me so happy. Thank you. I'll have a link to their Instagram in the description down below. And with that, we're at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more art videos every single Friday. Have a great weekend, guys, and keep on sketching. Bye!